Let's get now to the latest developments out of the Middle East. The president expressing his deep discontent with Israel after the country appeared to violate the ceasefire agreement put into place last night. Here's a listen.
I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because the one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that.
The president following up on those comments in a Truth Social post later this morning, saying Israel is not going to attack Iran. All planes will turn around and head home. Nobody will be hurt. The ceasefire is in effect. And it all comes as Trump heads to the Netherlands for his first full day at the 2025 NATO summit, where our next guest is also in attendance, and says this could be a huge victory lap for the president's Middle East policies. Let's bring in Fred Kempe. He's the CEO of the Atlantic Council and a CNBC contributor. Fred, welcome. Listen, the investor base kind of just wants to hear about defense spending, but obviously this is a huge moment for the president to arrive and hope that perhaps this conflict between Israel and Iran is behind us. We'll try to unmute Fred's mic so we can actually hear what he's saying there. But again, President Trump heading to the NATO summit today, where all countries are encouraged to spend about 3.5% on core defense and another 1.5% or so on defense-related spending, and that's got defense stocks all excited. So, Fred, we can pick up where you were starting a moment ago with the significance of his arrival there today and this hope that the Iran-Israel conflict is now behind us.
Kelly, first of all, I'm really sorry. Usually I just leave myself muted when I'm on the office calls. Look, Iran yesterday really showed its hand. And what it showed was through its proportionate response, through its really performative response, signaling to Qatar in advance what it was going to do, and then striking in a way that was not going to kill any Americans. It really said we want an off-ramp and we don't want escalation because this is really about regime survival. And if the regime needs to survive to another day, it doesn't want to escalate, isn't going to escalate. So I think these twos and fro's on the ceasefire, is Trump upset, is Trump not upset with Israel or Iran? Look, war is unpredictable. You can't know for sure what's going to happen the next day. But for the moment, I think the Iranian leadership is showing that it really doesn't have the stomach to escalate with Iran or with Israel, or to escalate with the United States. And that gets to the victory lap here. People you're talking to already in The Hague who have arrived, they're in awe about what the U.S. pulled off, a 30-plus hour round trip from the middle of America with B-2s dropping 30,000-pound bombs. Showing capabilities that most NATO allies can only dream of having. And he'll come here and he'll probably get what he wants. Spain seems to still be a holdout,
right.
But the Secretary General seems to have told Trump he's going to get his 3.5% core defense and 1.5% plus for related defense matters. And so that would be a very good week for the President of the United States.
You know, a lot of people here are saying it's the end of the taco trade, the Trump always chickens out trade. But let's not forget, that was really a tariff comment more than anything. It was basically the president ratchets up his tariff threat, or, what he appears to be imposing, and then kind of backs down and without necessarily securing it. I don't think that was ever really meant in the national security front. Nevertheless, what do you think the implications are, whether they're implications for what may happen with Russia and Ukraine next, or on the tariff front?
Well, look, there's been some taco to the United States over the last years with Iran and with Russia, and so I think in terms of the security front, what Trump has shown with Iran is a willingness to reimpose deterrence on the Middle East and show that the U.S. means business. And if you don't come through, we've given you 60 days to negotiate. On day 61 was when the Israelis started their strikes, and everything else followed with the U.S. I think what people here would like is a little bit more impatience with Vladimir Putin and the Russian leader. With Russia, Trump's just shown much more patience for him dithering with the negotiations. As Trump himself has said, he's tapping me with the negotiations. And they'd like to see a little bit more pressure on Russia, certainly not bombing, certainly not B-2s, But in terms of ratcheting up sanctions, there's a Senate bill sitting there with 82 co-sponsors. If Trump gives it the green light, they'll probably go ahead with that. And he could give clearer signs about continued weapons deliveries for Ukraine as well. I don't think we'll get that today and tomorrow, but that's really the kind of sign, once he's reinforced deterrence in the Middle East, perhaps we could do a little bit more to put pressure on
Right.
Putin here as well.
Although his latest comments basically suggested he's going to let them fight it out for now, Russia and Ukraine. He made an analogy to teenagers or to kids fighting, really, and saying sometimes you have to let it go for a bit. So he seems trying to figure out what the right entry point is to then kind of impose those next levels. And, we asked this, of course, for what it would mean for the oil market. If the Iranian barrels are coming back, maybe that gives us more space to crack down on the Russian front. I don't know.
Yeah, so on the plane talking to reporters, I think what will be troubling to NATO allies is he was talking about the definition of Article 5, which is an attack on one is attack on all, and whether the U.S. would be obligated to respond. And I think the allies here would like to see firmness there. His ambassador, Matt Whitaker, was very strong talking on the record today in The Hague, saying that the U.S. is here to stay. Now, the U.S. is here to stay, meaning with NATO in Europe, but it wants a more equal partner. It wants a partner in Europe that's going to carry its weight in European defense. So I think that's the trade-off.
Yeah.
The U.S. is here to stay. Will continue to do things, but Europeans, after many years since Eisenhower, really, American presidents have been calling for Europeans to spend more on defense. And if Trump really delivers that tomorrow, and all signs are that he will, that will be a historic summit.
Quickly, Fred, before we go, the president also made comments sort of saying, I forget how he phrased it exactly, Iranian barrels are coming back. You're welcome to the Chinese, you're welcome to the Iranians. So tacitly acknowledging this kind of back channel trade that's been going on for years now, but also suggesting that helping the Chinese secure those barrels he views as a positive outcome that they should be grateful for.
Yeah, this is a very unconventional president. We're just going to have to get used to that. I mean, one of the things that we haven't talked about yet is that on Truth Social, he shared Secretary General Mark Rutte's personal note to him, praising him for what he'd done on Iran, sharing with him that he's going to have success, a very big success in The Hague. This is just a different way of doing geopolitics. It's geopolitics as reality TV and reality social networking. Yeah.
Do you think there's any kind of fallout or implication, though, for the Chinese from all this?
Look, the Chinese, the Chinese and the Russians both put a lot of stock into the Iranian relationship, and both of them have reason to be disappointed. The Russians rely on Iranian drones. The Chinese rely on Iranian oil and energy deliveries. I think the president wants even markets on energy. He wants low prices. He doesn't want high prices. And so I think the ramification for the Chinese, it's really interesting watching the results on this. It's been relatively muted. And I think China is going to take this one on the chin. They have allies in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. They're not going to want to do anything to upset that situation. Yeah. If Iran shuts down the Straits of Hormuz, who's it going to hurt more than anyone? I'd be a relatively reasonable player in this whole tense situation.
Helping reach, some prevailing peace, I guess we could call it. All right, Fred, thank you. Appreciate you making the time as NATO gets underway. Fred Kempe with the Atlantic Council. Coming up, we'll have more on oil, with crude down 14% in 2 days and now negative since Israel's first airstrikes 12 days ago. Plus, the president arriving at that NATO summit in the Netherlands later this hour. Will the conflict in the Middle East overshadow the 2-day goals there? We'll have more on that ahead.